Sloppy Saturdays, and today we are going over our college football playoff brackets. The episode you guys have been waiting for. We're going to make our college football playoff predictions. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the teams that got in that maybe shouldn't have. We're going to talk about the state of each team right now, how far we think each team could possibly go, what's their ceiling in this tournament. We're going to talk about how certain games and this run could affect people going into the NFL draft as well. There is a lot to talk about. Let's dive right into it. Now, the first thing I do really want to discuss is who should have been in, who shouldn't have been in. We're going to go over all of it. I don't want to harp on things too much because what the tournament is right now just is what it is. They're already settled. The 12 teams are in. I don't want to sit here and, go over what we have been hammering the last couple of weeks. I told you guys, I truly do believe the college football playoff should eventually turn to whoever's 1 to 12 in the final rankings should be the tournament. That should be the seeding. Those should be the 12 teams that are in. I think it's the most fair way to go. I think right now it is the only way to go. The argument against that would be how much would conference tournaments really matter? Again, conference tournaments can change rankings within the last week, so I do think they would still have value. Not only that, I think there's always value in winning your conference championship, for sure. I think, again, that is something that whether you're in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, whatever the case may be, Big 12, people will hold pride still in winning your conference championship. Again, now going into the tournament, though, there are 2-3 teams that I think should not be in this tournament easily. We're going to go into first what everybody wants to hear about, the Miami-Notre Dame debate. Me personally, I've told you guys Notre Dame is a team that should have been in over Miami. I understand everybody wants to go straight to the head-to-head matchup, but my argument with the head-to-head loss for Notre Dame is sometimes you play somebody that's a bad matchup at a bad time. Again, Indiana just beat Ohio State. Do I think Indiana is the best team in the tournament? No, I still believe it's Ohio State. We saw early in the year, Alabama beat Georgia. I still think Georgia's the better team. I don't think head-to-head, one game, one matchup should really decide who should be in over each other. I think losses definitely matter as well. I think when you look at Notre Dame, their 2 losses compared to Miami, Notre Dame lost to 2 people that are in this college football playoff tournament right now. They lost to 2 top 15 teams in the country, teams that were ranked all year. When you look at Miami, they lost to 2 teams in the ACC. Again, much worse losses in my opinion. I thought the Miami loss to Louisville was absolutely horrendous. So that's another thing. And then my biggest thing, the thing that I really go to, and again, it is kind of a hypothetical. The college football playoffs, ESPN did put it out. I go to what if you played these teams in an even neutral site right now, who would be favored? I think Notre Dame would be heavily favored over Miami if they played a neutral site. Not heavily favored, but I do think it would be a significant amount. I think it would be 4 to 5 points. I think Notre Dame definitely finished out as the better team. The biggest thing to me that's so questionable of how Miami got in over Notre Dame, which doesn't make sense, the last 2-3 weeks, Notre Dame was ranked above Miami. The week before they decided this, Notre Dame was ranked over Miami. Both teams played no games. How now Miami is over Notre Dame makes no sense to me. It just again, when you talk about the premises and what this college football playoff should be based on, when you talk about a week goes by and you completely flip who's in front of who when neither of them played a game, I would love to ask the college football playoff committee, what is your thought process on that? How could somebody jump over somebody that's been ahead of them all year and no games get played in that week, and you just say, hey, we changed our mind? Again, doesn't make sense to me. It is what it is. And then when you talk about JMU and Tulane, 2 teams that should completely just not be in it. I understand what the college football playoffs rules going into the season was, how you have to have conference winners in, but again, you're putting 2 AAA teams essentially in. It's like putting the best AAA team in the MLB playoffs. I 100% agree with that argument. I get it, they're technically playing in the same league, FBS, but those 2 teams should not be in it. This is why it should be the best 12 teams. It should be teams ranked 1 to 12. If you're not ranked in the top 15, you shouldn't have a case in this college football playoffs. Again, we're only in the second year of the college football playoffs. We have some things to work on. As, again, college football has a lot of things to work on. This is only the second year of it. I expect it only to get better in the formatting. We have better seating alignment this year than we did last year. But again, it's a learning process clearly for the college football playoffs, and I do expect it to be better. But like I said, I believe the only way to fix who should be in, who shouldn't be in, is by doing straight 1 to 12 in the rankings. I know the concern is how much will conference championships matter at that point. I do believe schools and teams still take major pride in winning the conference championships regardless. But again, with all that being said, now we're going to get into my predictions, who I think is going to win every game, and we're going to talk about the state of each team as well as we're diving into it. Now, the first game that is going to come up is going to be on Friday, this is getting recorded today. This is how late I am. Alabama, Oklahoma. Now, my thing with this matchup is I believe both teams haven't looked great in the last couple of weeks. I think both teams are fairly limited. When you dive into Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma on offense is one of the most limited teams in this tournament. I believe both teams right now don't really have an outcome where they win a national championship. I don't think they're national championship contenders. Again, one of these teams does have the ceiling of winning a college football playoff game, as one team has to win this matchup. But I think after this matchup, I think both teams are going to be outmatched. When you look at Oklahoma, I believe what they are able to do in the passing game is very limited. And I think it really comes down to John Mateer. Now, I'm not really 100% sure if this is a result of John Mateer coming back from injury this season, as Oklahoma offense did look better in the beginning of the year, or is this just who John Mateer is in the SEC? I do think John Mateer is a little unorthodox. I don't think he can make every throw on the field, regardless if he's healthy or not. I do think they have the weapons outside, though, if they did have a quarterback that could make every throw, that could be even more threats. I think Isaiah Satanga is arguably the fastest player in college football. We see him get explosive plays, but they're really only on short routes that he ends up taking after the catch. And then Burks as well, one of the best receivers in the country for sure. The issue with this Oklahoma team as well is you have a running quarterback in John Mateer, but he's really the only source of running in your offense. We haven't really seen those backs produce much. Again, this Oklahoma team is very limited to me. I think their defense, though, is one of the best defenses in the tournament. I just think their offense is super limited. Now going into Alabama as well. Alabama is a team where we've seen stretches of Alabama look like completely different team in stretches of the year. When we look at Alabama, week 2 to 6, they were absolutely rolling. The offensive line was more consistent. They were getting a little more of a run game. Ty Simpson looked very comfortable. Now you look from week 6 to week 12, it has been not the same Alabama team. Ryan Williams completely uninvolved. I said if this team has any hopes of winning a national championship, Ryan Williams, arguably their most talented player, has to be involved. He's completely uninvolved. I think the offensive line is inconsistent. The way Ty Simpson has been playing under pressure has been really bad as well. They haven't been able to get anything in the run game. And on this offense, the only bright spot, in my opinion, has been Jeremy Bernard. Jeremy Bernard has been taking full control of being the top option in this offense. To me, he reminds me a lot of a Deebo Samuel, a guy that's really compact, a guy that could make things happen after the catch. But again, if this Alabama team has any hopes of going far in this tournament, this offensive line has to get way more consistent because everything truly bounces off of it. How Ty Simpson feels as a quarterback, how he's able to throw with anticipation and accuracy really depends on how much time he's given. And same thing with the running backs in this offense as well. I mean, we've seen a couple of stretches where these running backs have had good games. Again, I believe they haven't been able to get a run game going because the offensive line has been inconsistent. I think everything relies on the offensive line. I don't think they will be able to get much consistency throughout this tournament. But I do believe for this game, I will be taking Alabama. Like I said, I do think Alabama is reeling, and I do think Alabama really needs a good performance. I think, again, this game means so much to Ty Simpson as well when you talk about draft stock. I think it means a tremendous amount to Ty Simpson. I don't think it means as much as I've heard people have been saying. I don't think it's as black and white as this game, win or loss, depends on if he's a first-round pick or if he returns to Alabama. I don't know if Ty Simpson really has much of an option to return to Alabama because I do think Keelan Russell is on his heels. I think Keelan Russell is the future of this program for the next 2 years. I don't think Ty Simpson is going to take the option to return to Alabama regardless because I do think it would be a QB competition for sure. And I do believe even if he plays well in a loss, that, again, this is a guy that could get drafted in the first 2 rounds no matter what. I don't think I think this is a weak QB class. I do think he's going to get drafted within the first 2 rounds. Again, unless he completely bombs this performance. My opinion in this game, though, what everybody wants me to get into, I think Alabama does find a way to win it. I really do believe that. Just because, again, down the stretch of this game, even though we talked about how both teams are limited on offense, I think passing the ball downfield, Alabama has more of a threat than Oklahoma. And that's what it comes down to. And then even in the run game as well, I think Alabama is able to get a little more out of their backs than Oklahoma is as well. I think both defenses are really good. Like I said, I think Oklahoma has one of the best defenses in the country. But to me personally, unless Oklahoma has figured it out, got healthier in the last couple of weeks, and John Mateer is able to show that he's able to hit these guys downfield in an Isaiah Satanga and a Deion Burks, the way Oklahoma has been struggling to get to 20 points in the last 3-4 weeks, I don't think it's a formula to win a college football playoff game. I do think Alabama, if they have to figure it out on offense, down the stretch in this game, late in this game, I do think they have the ability to convert on a more wide range of plays than Oklahoma. I'm going to take Alabama in this game. Again, this is a huge proven point for Alabama, for Kalen DeBoer. He needs they need a playoff win more than anybody. I think Alabama gets it. I think they figure out a way. Next up, we're going to get into JMU, Oregon. I think this is going to be an absolute mismatch. I think this is going to be a game Oregon really stamps their foot on why JMU should not be in the college football playoffs. I think Oregon is truly one of the most intriguing teams in this college football playoffs because I believe out of every single contender, they have showed their cards the absolute least. When you look at Oregon, I get how Oregon doesn't have much impressive games under their belt. I get that notion. We talked about in the beginning of the year, Oregon was a team that's a shoo-in for the college football playoff just based on who they faced. I mean, when you look at the 2 games they really played, they played Penn State in that whiteout game when Penn State saw the expectations. Then they played Indiana and lost that game as well. I do think the Iowa game showed a lot about that team, though, because how many injuries they had in the Iowa game at the receiver position, again, towards the end of the season, had a lot of injuries at the receiver position. But the way Oregon, the last couple of weeks, have really been able to utilize their run game, really have like a 3-headed rushing attack, been able to feed the hot hand, been able to give defenses different looks at the running back position, I think only helps them going into this run because now they are going to come in at full strength at the wide receiver position as well. I don't know if Evan Stewart's going to play in this game. My hunch is that they sit Evan Stewart one more week because they look at this pretty much almost as a bye as they're playing JMU. But I think to have a wide receiver core as deep as Oregon, where, again, the last 3-4 weeks, you haven't seen a lot of these guys. I mean, like we said, you haven't seen Evan Stewart the whole year. You haven't seen the Corey Moore in 3-4 weeks. You haven't seen Gary Bryant in 3-4 weeks. And then again, guys have stepped up. Benson has stepped up. McLennan has stepped up. That's a guy you got to really figure out to make plays for too. So now you're looking at a team that hasn't had the receiver help in 3-4 weeks, that now has 3, 4, 5 receivers you could go to, that turns into one of the deepest receiving cores in the college football playoffs. And again, like I said, I think it's such a scary thing for defenses going up against this team because you haven't seen this team at full strength all year. You haven't seen what a lot of these receivers could do when they're all on the field. And you haven't really seen Dante Moore been able to show what he's able to show as the best pure passer in college football because he hasn't had the weapons. I think that's a very scary thing for this Oregon team. I think this Oregon team could go really far because of it. And I think this thing for Dante Moore too, like this tournament could really do wonders for Dante Moore. Dante Moore is the most blessed physical talent out of the quarterbacks that are able to go in the first round at this point. And I still believe, even though Indiana has had an incredible year, even though Fernando Mendoza has won the Heisman and been playing great, I think with a deep Oregon run, everything is in the realm of possibility for Dante Moore. I don't think being the first overall pick in this draft is completely closed off for Dante Moore. He shows his capability of playing really well in this college football playoffs, taking Oregon to a deep run. That I trust Oregon in because I didn't even get into it. I also trust their defense. And I also trust Dan Lanning as a coach as a top-tier coach in this tournament. Everything's in the realms of possibility for Oregon. Getting into my matchup prediction, they absolutely kill JMU. They kill JMU by 25, 30 points. They move on. We're going to get into them again a little more in this episode as well as we keep discussing them. Then we get into Ole Miss Tulane. Believe me, I'm probably rooting for Ole Miss more than any other team in this tournament, but I do think they're just a team with a ceiling in this tournament. I think the max they could probably win 1-2 games in this tournament. I don't think they're a true national championship contender. Kind of the same thing as in Alabama and in Oklahoma. I do think they have a 1-2 game win ceiling. I think Ole Miss does beat Tulane though convincingly. I think Ole Miss is really coming out of the Lane Kiffin drama as wanting to really prove something in this matchup. And I think again, they're going to take it out on the weaker opponent. I think they're going to really beat Tulane convincingly again, maybe a 20-point victory. Now we're getting into A&M Miami. Now, as much as I said everything that I think Notre Dame should be in over Miami, which I 100% do stand on, I don't think Miami is a pushover at all either. I think this Miami team is very talented. I think their front seven arguably could be one of the best in college football, one of the best in the tournament. I think their defense is really good. I think their offense is solid as hell too. I think they're able to run the football with Mark Fletcher and other running backs, and I do believe their wide receiving core is really good as well. I think Malachi Tony has quietly the case of being arguably the best freshman player this year. I think he has been phenomenal. CJ Daniels, I think, is another really good wide receiver on his team as well. Carson Beck, again, you talk about a guy that has experience in college football. You could argue he has the most experience out of any quarterback in this tournament. My issue with Carson Beck, we've seen it. His down games are pretty rough. Is he going to have a game where he throws multiple interceptions in this tournament? And will Miami be able to overcome that? That's not something I'm 100% sure of. I also think Miami has an extremely tough matchup in their first matchup. I think Texas A&M is flying completely under the radar. I think Texas A&M is one of the most dangerous sleeping teams in this tournament, along with Oregon. I think Texas A&M has the deepest offense in the entire country. I think they have the biggest dual threat quarterback in this tournament, in a tournament where there isn't much true dual threat quarterbacks that can get it done running the ball and passing the ball. Again, you probably go to Marshall Reed and Trinidad Chambliss as the only two that are able to really push the ball downfield and be a true threat with their legs. I talked about John Mateer, who I don't think is at their level. So that's going to be tough for a college defense to really go up against a true threat running the football when there isn't much in this tournament for really the first time, again, in a while. You don't have much true threat, dual threat quarterbacks in college football right now. And then when you look at the receiving core, it's ridiculous. This receiving core for Texas A&M, again, I understand the notion of Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And again, Indiana has a really good wide receiver duo. A lot of teams have a really good wide receiver duo, but as three wide receivers, nobody has it better than Texas A&M. I think they have three wide receiver ones, in my opinion. I think KC and Mario Craver, again, two of the best receivers in college football. Beto Roman, the last couple of weeks, flying under the radar as well. They have three wide receiver ones. And I think they have two backs that are RB ones in college football as well. This offense is extremely deep. They could beat you running the football. They could beat you throwing the football. It's very tough who's ever the third corner on one of these guys. Like, again, I think Miami's defense is definitely better than A&M's defense. I think A&M's defense is very streaky. One of the most streakiest defenses in college football. I hope for A&M's sake and for me rooting for them, I hope that they could figure out their defense, how to put multiple consistent games in this tournament. Because I believe if this defense can limit offenses, sky's the limit for this A&M team. I believe, again, not only is Mike Elko a great coach, but this offense is so deep, could threaten every blade of the grass on the entire field, which is how much of a threat Marshall Reed is running the football. Again, with their three wide receiver ones, with their two great running backs, I think it's going to be too much for Miami, obviously, as I have been glazing them the last couple of minutes. Even though Miami possibly is more the complete team on both sides of the ball. Texas A&M offense is going to be too much. This team runs up scores like a basketball team. Texas A&M, I think, is just going to be too much for this Miami offense to really go band for band with, in a sense. A&M is going to win this game. I think A&M for sure is going to win this game. A lot of people think it's going to be Miami because Miami feels like they kind of have to prove that they should have been in this tournament, but A&M's a sleeping giant. A&M is for real. Now we're getting into Oregon, Texas Tech. This is very interesting to me. These are two teams that I absolutely love. These are two teams that I think could make the title game. Texas Tech defense absolutely flies. One of the best defenses in the whole tournament. In my opinion, the second best defense behind Ohio State, because Ohio State has just been historic as well. I think Texas Tech as an offense could really threaten any team as well. Like, I do think their offense isn't necessarily at the standard as some of these other offenses, but it's a solid offense. It's a team that can run and throw the football. Again, I don't think it really has any limitations, but in my opinion, it doesn't have anybody that also really stands out to you. Then when you get to Oregon, I think Oregon's complete. And I think what's going to kill Texas Tech in this Oregon-Texas Tech game is just, again, how much we haven't seen this Oregon team at full strength. I think, again, at the end of games 2, I would trust this Oregon offense a little more because I think certain players make plays. I think Dante Moore, again, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's a first-round NFL draft pick. He's a guy that I want late in this game when I need a score. I don't know who I'm going to on Texas Tech. Like I said, I do think they're a team that has enough on offense to make a run, but I think you want to go to certain players. Like Oregon, not only is Dante Moore a first-round draft pick, you have one of the most prolific freshman talents in DeCoy Moore. You have arguably the best tight end in the country in Kenyon Sadiq. In my opinion, as good as this Texas Tech defense is, and I do think it's not going to be a game where Oregon's going to put up 40 against them, I think it's going to hurt the Texas Tech defense, that being the strength of that you haven't seen this Oregon team fully complete. I think in this game, if you have an Evan Stewart that comes back, even though he's not going to be 100% necessarily, he's one of the best talents in college football. And then you add that with DeCoy Moore, with Kenyon Sadiq, with the 3 backs they have, that's going to be, I think, to get a defense very tired and worked up. And then you add Dante Moore having something to prove. I think Oregon moves on. Oregon's a sleeper, in my opinion. Then we're going to get into Indiana and what would be Alabama in my predictions. I think Indiana wins this game. I really do. Indiana, again, they're rolling right now. They could threaten Alabama in multiple ways. One, I think they're a more consistent offensive team. Obviously, up front on their offensive line, I think what they have currently compared to Alabama allows them to put themselves in a spot where they could really take whatever the defense gives them on offense, gives them more time. And then their defense is really good as well. And for an Alabama team that, in my opinion, like we said, they're streaky. They don't really have much of an identity. They have their most talented player on offense being uninvolved. They have an offensive line that's been inconsistent. Again, you're talking about an Indiana team that's in an elite class in this tournament, and we're talking about an Alabama team that, like I said, really their ceiling for me, especially with their route, is to win one game. Indiana is the better team. Alabama, again, is reeling. I do think they get one win in this tournament, but I don't think they get past Indiana. Then we get into Ole Miss, Tulane. Ole Miss, we have beating Tulane. Then we get into Ole Miss, Georgia. They did play once. Ole Miss really dominated that game for a stretch of that game, and still Georgia came out because the Georgia heroics late in games, Georgia's battle tested late in games. Gunnar Stockton is arguably the best fourth quarter quarterback in the country. To me personally, there is still something missing with this Georgia team. I understand they have Nate Frazier, other backs. They have Zachariah Branch, who's super explosive. Again, they don't have that one guy on this offense that I really trust for a deep college football playoff run. They do have a bye, and I do think they beat Ole Miss because I think, again, you're going up against Kirby Smart, who's the best coach in this tournament, the most experienced coach in this tournament. And you don't have Lane Kiffin as a play caller. I do think you could take what you have been wanted to take out on Tulane, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that against Georgia. I do usually like a team not to beat the same team twice, but I think not having Lane Kiffin it's just going to be too much for them against Georgia. Like I think they could obviously get past Tulane without having him, but Georgia, I don't think it's going to happen. Give me Georgia. Then we got Ohio State, Texas A&M. Now, again, I am predicting a couple of upsets in this prediction. I love A&M. I told you I love A&M. I think they have the most deep offense in college football. Again, you could argue Ohio State, you could argue Indiana. I think what Texas A&M has been able to shown they have been able to do on offense. They're the most deep team on offense with 3 receivers with 2 RB1s. We said it all. But in my opinion, Ohio State is the most complete team in this tournament. They have stars. They have an historic defense. And again, A&M may be able to go band for band with Ohio State. We'll see. They haven't faced a defense as great as Ohio State, but I do think this offense is going to score points on anybody in this tournament. Whether they end up, it would be tough for them to play at Texas Tech, whether it's in Ohio State. I think this team could score with anybody. That's not my concern. But when you have a defense like theirs in A&M that is so streaky, and you have an Ohio State defense that's so solid, that could also put up the same amount of points as a Texas A&M, Ohio State's just way more complete. I've said it. I think Julian Sayin is the best quarterback in the country. He's the quarterback that I trust the most in this tournament. I get he's only a first-year starter. I absolutely love him, though. And then, again, Ohio State got playmakers on offense. They got Jeremiah Smith, the best offensive weapon in the country. They got Cardinal Tate, you could argue the second best offensive weapon in the country. They got a run game. Again, would it shock me if A&M upset Ohio State? It wouldn't shock me. I love this A&M team. I think Ohio State could be on upset alert, but I'm not going to be the one to pick it. I pick Ohio State to move on, as I do think they are the best team in this tournament. Now we're getting to the semifinals. We have Indiana and Oregon. This is where I'm going to make things shake. Like I said, I think Oregon has everything you would want on both sides of the ball in their coach and Dan Lanning. And I truly believe that them not being at full strength the whole season is only going to help them in this tournament. Because, again, Indiana will be able to see them and watch tape for a couple weeks now going into this game if this game were to happen. But, again, Dante Moore, I think, has a lot to prove. I think he's going to make the most of all the weapons he has. I think the run game for this Oregon team is absurd because they could use 3 backs. They could give you different looks. They could put in fresh legs. And this Indiana team's on fire. There's no doubt. You can make an argument that the best coach is Curt Cignetti. They have the Heisman Trophy winner. They have great on both sides of the ball. But I also do believe that being undefeated in this tournament, again, sometimes you are the best team by far in a tournament, and you could just never lose the whole season. But I do like a team coming in with a loss. I do like a team facing adversity. I don't think Indiana's going to go undefeated the whole season. I predict Oregon to win that matchup. Again, I could be wrong, and Oregon could lose to Texas Tech, but I think this Oregon team has something special about them. Then we get into Georgia, Ohio State. I think Ohio State is the best team in the tournament, which is predicting, basically foreshadowing everything. Like I said, I don't think Georgia just has enough. I don't believe this Georgia team has enough. Again, they have played a really good matchup, a really good defensive game against Alabama in the last game we saw. But I don't think their defense is as good as it's been in previous years. And again, as well as Gunnar Stockton does play in the clutch, I don't think he's one of the best quarterbacks in this tournament. Again, do they have enough on offense to make a run? Yeah, but there's nothing that jumps out that's special about them. I think Ohio State, long story short, is better than them pretty much everywhere. I think they have a better defense. I think their offense in totality is much better as well. I trust Julian saying more. The weapons they have on offense are much better. Again, only thing that worries me in a game like this, Kirby Smart compared to Ryan Day is night and day, no pun intended. Like Kirby Smart clears him when you talk about in-game adjustments, in-game coaching. But if Ohio State is ahead the whole entire game pretty much, I think Ohio State for sure wins it. I do get a little nervous with Ryan Day when it comes to, a tight game, but I think Ohio State's much better. And then my national championship, Oregon, Ohio State. I said it. I don't have to say much more. I think Ohio State goes back to back. I think they're the most complete team in the country. I think Julian Sain is the best quarterback in the tournament, despite that I do really like Dante Moore with what he has to prove in this tournament. I think Oregon, again, makes the national championship. It's a great run for them being a 5th seed, but Ohio State's the best team in this tournament. That wraps up my college football playoff predictions. We went over everything, what state each team is at right now. We are going to be covering this tournament every single week as well. Each game we're going to be reacting to. We're going to make episodes. Don't worry about it. This isn't the end of the college football playoff episodes. They're going to keep coming. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Drop down below who you think is going to win the whole entire tournament. Drop down below a couple sleepers as well. I want to hear your guys' sleepers, who you think could possibly make a deep run that maybe people aren't giving enough credit to. That wraps up